The heat, the smoke, the precision of physical movement. For 3,000 years, Vedic rituals required strict, flawless execution. The ancient Vedas split into two distinct halves. The Upanishads explore abstract knowledge, while the Karmakanda focuses on action. Apurva Mimamsa deals exclusively with this earlier portion. Its entire focus is on duty, ritual, and prescribed action, or Dharma. These are rigorous physical duties performed by practitioners who required certainty that their actions carried genuine meaning. Mimamsa provides a systematic epistemology engineered to justify these rituals as the path to liberation. The philosophers of this school faced a difficult logical hurdle. They had to prove a text carries absolute authority without claiming a divine creator. The earliest and most comprehensive attempt to solve this was the Mimamsa Sutra, a foundational text compiled by the philosopher Jaimini. Over centuries, interpretation of this work split into two distinct schools, led by the scholars Prabhakara, nicknamed the Guru, and Kumarila Bhatta. Together, they defined the Pramanas, the strict rules governing what constitutes valid human knowledge. To demonstrate the Vedas' infallibility, these scholars mapped human cognition, starting with the raw input of our physical senses. Perception, or pratyaksha, serves as the baseline for all human knowledge. This diagram shows the mechanical chain of perception. The self connects to the mind to a sense organ, and the sense organ to an external object. They mapped specific properties. For instance, Mimamsa uniquely mapped the auditory organ to space, or dik. This process occurs in two stages. The first is indeterminate perception, a pure, non-relational awareness of an object, occurring before any specific labels are attached. The rival Nyaya school argued this indeterminate stage is a theoretical hypothesis we deduce after the fact to account for our more complex thoughts. Mimamsa maintains that indeterminate awareness is a real, lived experience. It drives the behavior of animals and the immediate actions of adults in confusion. Mimamsa treats this raw sensory input as a legitimate foundation for real-world activity. When we lack direct sensory contact, we use inference, or anumana, to reach new truths from previous observations. This interface shows the structural requirement for a valid inference: the hypothesis, the reason, and the examples. The hypothesis is divided into the paksha, the target object, and the sadhya, the specific idea being proven. The logic depends on vyapti, the unbreakable rule connecting the reason to the conclusion. For validity, the reason must be verified through positive evidence and the confirmed absence of negative counter-evidence. Inference is a precise tool, but its validity is limited by the universal rules that bind the evidence together. When we lack a universal rule, we rely on comparison, or upamana. Mimamsa defines this process quite differently than the rival Nyaya school. Nyaya defines comparison as learning a definition from someone else, like being told a wild cow looks like a regular cow. Mimamsa identifies a flaw. Reliance on testimony is separate. For Mimamsa, comparison happens internally when you perceive a new object. The cognitive leap happens with the realization, the cow I remember from the past is similar to this wild cow I see right now. This recognition of similarity is independent of inference because it does not require a universal rule, or vyapti. Mimamsa isolates comparison as an independent tool that allows the mind to recognize truth without external teachers. Senses and logic cannot measure duty. For that, Mimamsa relies on verbal testimony, or shabda pramana. This testimony is divided into two categories: personal human testimony and impersonal testimony. Human testimony is inherently fallible. Even trustworthy sources are subject to error or later contradiction. Because human words are subject to doubt, Mimamsa argues the Veda is eternal and authorless, a concept called aparuseya. They specify that the Veda was not composed by sages or spoken by a deity. The sages simply saw it. This creates a paradox. How can a text composed of specific letters and language exist without a creator? To defend an authorless text, Mimamsa proposed that language is an eternal physical constant of the universe. They introduced the concept of the eternal letter, or varna. In this framework, letters are indestructible physical realities rather than human inventions. This animation contrasts the eternal Varna in the center with the temporary vehicles we use to manifest it, spoken sounds called dhwani and written symbols called rupa. If 10 different voices speak a word, they are 10 temporary manifestations of a single eternal truth. Because these words are eternal universals, the relationship between a word and its meaning is naturally woven into the universe. This theory positions language as a natural science that humans discover rather than create. This entire architecture was built to prove the Veda is an eternal natural truth. The philosopher Prabhakara argued that the Veda consists entirely of injunctions, or vidi. All of this infallible knowledge exists to drive action. This rigorous epistemic architecture ensures that ritual duties are guided by absolute truth on the path to liberation.